Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are joined live from Indianapolis by Cory Curtis from News 2. We're going to get two stints of Cory today. He's with us now until 9:45. He'll be back on at 11. Cory, thanks for working us into your busy schedule while you're up there at the NFL Combine.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. We got started earlier today, 7 a.m. Central Time. So we've already got some interviews in the books, and then I have to leave because at 10 o'clock Central Time, that's when we get Ruben Bain and David Bailey. Both are going to be at the podium.
Love it. So we will get updates on what they had to say when you rejoin us at 11. But you did hear from Arvell Reese earlier today, and Reese is an intriguing prospect. I am hesitant to say that he will be there at 4 when the Titans draft, but I think it was good to hear from him, and the best part is he's going to go out there and compete at the Combine this week, do all the drills, run the 40, and we were texting about this morning, Cory. This is an event built for a guy like Arvell Reese, who is an athletic freak and has a chance to go show that off.
Look, if he has a poor combine, it'll be the shock of the combine, because like I said, I mean, this is built for a guy like him. Speed, power. He's only 20 years old. I was standing in the front row when he spoke. Jake, I don't think he shaves yet. I'm 100% serious. I don't think he shaves yet. So he's not even, I mean, he looks like a grown man, but he's not a grown man yet. And, I think he can still put on, some weight at the next level. I think there was a lot of position talk with him, and it's pretty clear he sees himself as an outside linebacker who can come in and put his hand in the dirt in passing situations.
And that's what I think he's going to be expected to do at the NFL level. He played more off ball at Ohio State, but if you're going to take a guy like that in the top 5, you expect him to be able to get to the quarterback. So that's what teams expect him to do. And I would guess that's what he is going to tell everyone he wants to do, because that's what's going to make you the most money, is if you're able to sack the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting because, are you going to limit the amount of times he goes after the quarterback? Because, like when we watched the Titans, every time I saw Harold Landry drop back into pass coverage, I was like, what are they doing? I mean, he's one of the few pass rushers that they've got, and we could have said that about several other guys too, but he's very comfortable dropping back in pass coverage and playing on 2 feet. He talked about at Ohio State, he didn't really have a position. They moved him all around, but that's kind of how they used him, outside linebacker. And then, whether it be a 4-man front or a 5-man front or a 3-man front, he was on the edge, going after the quarterback in passing situations. In the NFL, they're all passing situations now. So it's depending on who you're playing. So it'll be interesting to see. The other thing, like I said, he's only 20 years old.
Yep.
He's only got like 1 real year of college experience. And I don't think he had a sack the last 6 games of his season last year. And that's not to condemn him or say he's not worth the pick. I mean, because he's obviously an elite prospect. But, you're talking about top 5. And when you're picking the top 5, you got to get it right. You can't afford to swing and miss on these guys, because, as a GM or a head coach, if you're picking in the top 5 more than once, you're generally out of a job. And so, he needs to be successful. And so, you have to ask yourself, how dominant of a player is he? Yes, there's huge upside. Do we have the people in place to get that upside out of him? There's all those questions to be had.
Yeah, that's what we talked about with these 3 pass rush prospects, is they're all different flavors. And you look at Ruben Bain, and the tape, as Robert Saleh said, is undeniable. We'll talk a little bit more about him later on. David Bailey is kind of that in between. He's got the length. He's got more of your stereotypical edge rusher build, but he also has the production. And then Arvell Reese is the athletic freak. We're going to project that he can maybe end up being a Micah Parsons type guy, but you just haven't quite seen it at the college level yet. So it's going to be interesting what front offices value when they look at these 3 guys in the draft.
You're absolutely right. There are three completely different guys, each with their own set of strengths and each with their own set of question marks. And that's really what makes it so interesting. Is like, there isn't a perfect prospect here. Look, if you looked at Jeremiah Love at running back and you were like, all right, well, who are we comparing him to? You would just be like, no, it's Jeremiah Love. He's the guy.
Right.
And he does everything well. So, there's not that much to dissect. But with these guys, like you said, Bain's got short arms, Bailey's got long arms. I think the comp for Bailey is Nick Benito, and I think that's probably a pretty good comp. And if you got that kind of production, you'd be pretty darn happy. I think he had 14 and a half sacks his first 3 years at Stanford, and then 14 and a half last year.
Yes.
At Texas Tech. The question I have about him is his violence level. He has very long arms and strong hands, and he plays really effectively with those. But I don't know how violent of a football player that he is. And look, I am not a scout. I am not a coach. But that's just my impression when I watch him. And so I'm interested to see what others have to say about that, because he is long. But how powerful is he? He can bend. He's fast. I think he can get to the quarterback, but again, all of them have a strength and all of them have a weakness. It's finding out what that is and which one you want to work with.
All three of them speaking today. They will be out on the field. Not sure how much Bailey and Bain will do at the combine, but the combine interview's underway. Reese spoke this morning, and again, Ruben Bain, David Bailey speaking on in about an hour out there in Indianapolis. 615-737-1025. Let's go to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. T-Mac in Murfreesboro has called in. T-Mac, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah, so last night I was looking at some highlights of Ruben Bain and David Bailey on YouTube last night. And one thing I realized about both of them really with David Bailey, I mean, you're right, he has the production. And I feel like, as far as his contact, it's more aggressive. When he gets in the backfield, like the quarterback is more aggressive. But with Ruben Bain, even though he may not have the stats that David Bailey had, he has a knack for getting the ball out. Once he gets back there to the quarterback, he can get that ball out. So I think that's going to make him more valuable, because if he falls to number 4 with the tight, he has a high probability of causing a turnover if it's sacked. So I'll say that, and then I hang up.
Yeah, thanks for the call, T-Mac. I think when you look at Bailey and Bain, both of them, highly productive players in college. Again, Bailey led the FBS in sacks this year. Bain, we saw what he did in the college football playoff. Again, it's choosing your flavor. I think Bain is, with the length, is less of your outside pass rusher. He might have to bump inside, probably a better run defender. But David Bailey is it is standard casting for what you want in a pass rusher. I think it's just going to be what the Titans feel is more valuable.
Well, and like you also, I'm just telling you, this is the way the NFL is going to look at it. They're going to look at David Bailey and they're going to say, we can coach that. We can coach him to come around from the backside, use those long arms to reach around the quarterback when he can't see them and get the ball out. Or when when that ball gets cocked back there, use that superior length to knock the ball out of his hand. So it is a skill, and he's right. Bain is a violent player. He is unquestionably a violent player. And so he does get the ball out. But an NFL coach, an NFL GM is going to look at David Bailey and say, we can coach that. And, look, we all go to practice. We see them. They work on this stuff all the time. Getting the ball out is a priority for every NFL defense.
Right.
And it's something they practice all the time. Now, just because you practice it doesn't mean it comes to you naturally and you get better and better at it. But, you've seen guys from the Titans get better and better at it. You see like Big Jeff go in there now, and he's always swiping at the ball when he goes in to finish. And so, it is something they work on. But I think having that innate ability, is a check. in Bain's column, but I don't think, again, knowing the egos of the coaches, they're going to say we can coach that.
Right. It's a good point. You can coach the ability to get the ball out. You can't coach Ruben Bain to have longer arms if that ends up being an issue. 615-737-1025. We can talk about the comments Robert Saleh had on Ruben Bain yesterday. He spoke at the podium. Mike Borgonzi will speak later on today. I thought Saleh's press conference, he didn't say a ton, and rightfully so. I think a lot of these guys are trying to withhold a lot of their strategy when it comes to free agency in the draft, but did have some pretty strong comments on Cam Ward and did comment on some of the prospects that they'll be looking at this week. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We are off and running on this Wednesday. Cory with us for 2 stints today, 9 to 9:45, 11 to 11:45. Kevin Ingram will also join us at 9:45 to preview a big game for Vanderbilt men's basketball against Georgia tonight. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, Cory Curtis with you on your Wednesday. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. That was Robert Saleh at the NFL Combine yesterday talking about Cam Ward and the way that he has enhanced his leadership ability, knows everybody in the building, and says that guys who work like him and act like him rarely ever don't find success. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis, Parker Kelly with you on this Wednesday. Cory with us for a couple more segments in this first hour. He'll return at 11. Cory, very strong words from Robert Saleh on his young quarterback there. I know, obviously he's going to have good things to say about Cam Ward, but I thought the way he put that specifically showed how much respect Robert Saleh has for Cam Ward and the excitement to get to work with him more once they get back on the field in a couple of months.
Well, it's really no different than we've heard from pretty much everybody else about Cam Ward, and that's the commitment to being great and the commitment to the team and wanting to win, and that all shining through. It's part of the reason. It's a big part of the reason he was the first pick of the draft. Is all those intangibles meeting with the skill set on the field, what you're looking for from that position. There's not a question why Robert Saleh circled the Titans and said, this is the team I want to coach. Cam Ward was a huge part of that. Now, having said that, he also had nice things to say about Will Levis, Femi Oladejo, and T'Vondre Sweat yesterday. So, he's coming to bat for his players. And, this is, certainly an environment to do that in. You don't want to raise questions about your players in front of the entire National Football League.
Right.
But again, when you see which traits stick out, I guess that's what stands out.
Yeah, and you're right. No coach is going to go out there and publicly bash their own players. That's for the Bills owner.
We're going to make them compete,
Right, yeah. Him and Will are going to get after it when the spring rolls around. But it is good to hear from Robert Saleh, and we heard very similar comments from Brian Daboll last week of the pre-draft process that Brian Daboll went through with Cam Ward. He talked about how impressed he was with Cam and the relationship that they were able to build. This doesn't mean that Cam Ward is going to be a franchise quarterback, but it does feel like not just in the building, but around the NFL, there's been a lot of praise for what Cam Ward has been able to do, not just in his rookie season, but as a prospect overall, as this young Titans quarterback.
Well, I mean, look, there's a reason the Giants wanted to trade for him, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they liked him enough to trade a whole bunch of draft capital to get him. One of the other interesting conversations yesterday was Brandon Beane, the Buffalo Bills general manager. I think Tehran asked him, so are you going to have Tehran on tomorrow?
Yes, that's the plan.
Yeah, so this would be a good conversation for Tehran, because I think he's the one who asked the question about Brandon Beane, about Daboll coaching Cam Ward, and he talked about how successful he was with Josh Allen, but he also talked about that Cam had better be prepared to have thick skin, because Daboll coaches you hard. I personally think, from my 10,000-foot view of Cam Ward, he's built for that, and I think he welcomes that. I think his ability to work through the hard times last year shows you he's not afraid of criticism and not afraid of failure and not afraid of confrontation. I think it will probably be best for him. You have to build that relationship first, and I think that's one of the things that Daboll talked about. You have to set up a relationship, and once the guy knows you care about him, then you can start coaching him hard. When they know it's coming from the right place, when they know you respect him. You can coach people hard when they know you respect them and when you love them, because they know that it's coming from the right place. Because how many times do you hear people who get coached hard by somebody and they think the person just hates them? And then you find out after the fact, no, I didn't hate him. I loved him. I was just trying to unleash the player that was in there. That's all. But, players will respond to that better if you establish the relationship first. And so, I think that's all what we're going to see. And it'll be interesting, because I'm looking forward to the practice field being a noisier place.
Yeah. And Robert Saleh, I think, is going to bring a different type of juice, a different type of energy than what we've seen over the last couple of years. You mentioned he also had some comments on Femi Oladejo and T'Vondre Sweat. Those have been the two guys on this defense that you look at and just say, based on what Robert Saleh has done in the past, do those guys fit? We can start with Femi. I thought it was pretty telling that Robert Saleh said, hey, in San Francisco, we evaluated him as a 4-3 defensive end who's going to put his hand in the dirt and go rush the quarterback. So I think that makes you feel like the fit isn't as big of a question as maybe you initially would have thought on paper.
It was the most shocking statement that I heard from Saleh on the day, was how positive he was about how Femi fit into the defense, and that he could be, that they were planning on putting his hand in the dirt and making him a 4-3 defensive end. Now, he's a big guy. I mean, he's very big up top. And so, there's, again, you're still talking about a project player, though, a guy who's going to have to develop and learning a new position. And this takes that a whole nother step further, but it also gives you another body at that position where you're like, okay, do they need 2 bodies? Do they need 3 bodies?
Yeah.
Well, this is a body that they think fits in there, and we'll see. I think ideally it's the 3rd body right now, but we have to wait and see on that. I mean, I'd like to see them draft one and sign one. Like if you told me they were going to draft Ruben Bain and start him at one end and sign Bradley Chubb and start him at the other, and then have Tavondre and Jeff in the middle, I'd be, let's go.
Sign me up.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Femi, you cannot slot him in as one of your starting edges at the beginning of this season.
Yeah,
but
it'd be tough.
I think you sign a veteran and hope that eventually Femi passes them, right? Like, you hope that the growth potential is there for Femi to make that a tough decision.
Well,
for Robert
I think it's
Saleh.
that depends on how high end of a veteran.
It's a very good point, right? Like, if you go sign Trey Hendrickson, I don't think that's quite as realistic. But you go out and get Yator Gross Matos or Cleveland Farrell, who were both with Saleh in San Francisco. That's one of those where it looks like it's more of a Band-Aid until Femi gets his feet underneath him. Tavondre Sweat as well. Good comments about Tavondre Sweat. Robert Saleh said, you talk about there isn't a massive example of having a massive man in the middle of their defensive line. But he mentioned Al Woods. I would say the comments on Sweat were a little less optimistic, but still did feel like Tavondre is going to have an opportunity to make some plays in this system.
Well, I had a big conversation with Julian Minnesone, my coworker at News 2, on the way here about Tavondre Sweat. And the point I made to him was, Tavondre Sweat is a great big man at 365 pounds, but he is also much more athletic at 365 pounds and quicker at 365 pounds than you're probably accustomed to seeing. Now, they still may want him to drop another 10 to 15 pounds. That remains to be seen. He's proven he can play at that weight and stay on the field. Now, we saw Jeff drop 15, 20 pounds, and it took him from 6 sacks to 11 sacks. So, he's working with Jeff this summer. If he can get in that kind of shape, not saying get down to 315, but maybe 350, does that take him from 2 sacks to 5? Because that's a big difference. But I think you need to give him a chance to show that he can't do it. Personally, you've got a lot invested in him.
Yep.
I think he's got a lot of talent. I don't think he's just a big fat slow guy on the line of scrimmage. Okay. I think there's a lot of athletic ability there. He talked about he's going to have to work hard. And that's been something said around Tavondre, and like I keep bringing up Jeff. Jeff has given him the template. Jeff has showed him the example. You put in the work, and this is the type of result you can get. And so, I'm anxious to see what can happen there and what kind of player he can be, because it is a different system. It is different work, but I think he can be a good player.
100%. Robert Saleh said as much. He said it's not going to be easy for Tavondre Sweat, but if he puts in the work, there is a role for him on this defensive front. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. You can text or call. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We've got one more segment with Cory in our first stint of the day. Again, Cory will rejoin us from the Combine at 11. We'll talk about Robert Saleh's comments on Ruben Bain, who is going to speak to the media coming up in about 30 minutes here. He did say Ruben Bain's tape is undeniable, but also mentioned that length is something he values. So we'll make sense of those comments from Robert Saleh coming up next. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis, Parker Kelly. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. That was Robert Saleh yesterday, asked about the importance of arm length, which is going to be a big conversation this week, especially around Ruben Bain, who that's been the knock on him. Great football player, but historically, guys with his length of arms do not play on the edge or do not end up being impact players on the edge. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis, Parker Kelly with you here on Next Man Up. Cory, it was interesting yesterday in the side media session before he hit the podium. It was reported, Paul Kaharski tweeted it out first, that Ruben Bain's tape is undeniable. That was what Robert Saleh said. Then he says in the podium press conference that arm length is going to be very important. You need long arms with the way that they run their defense. That's going to be the big question. Does the undeniable tape overshadow the lack of length for Ruben Bain?
That is the beauty of the draft process. Find a guy, who you love, find his weakness and say, can we get through it?
Does it
can
matter?
We coach him past him? Yeah, it doesn't matter. What did the Rams get Aaron Donald at 11?
Yes.
And a little undersized, right? 280, 285 pounds.
Right. Shorter arms. I think he was 31 or 32 inches, somewhere in there.
Now, interior defensive lineman, but turned out okay, I believe.
I think it worked out for him.
I think despite being 280, 285, he worked out at that position. But that's why I say, at 14, we'll take that chance. You want to take that chance at 4. That's what you have to find out. It's like, I asked Saleh yesterday about the Rams and the Jags not coming here because they don't want interactions to cloud their judgment of players.
Yep.
And he's like, they want all the information they can get. He goes, but realistically, meeting a player isn't going to knock them off the pick unless they're just a character nightmare. And so I guess that's, do they view the arms and the arm length as a nightmare compared to the tape? I mean, because the tape is great. But now, the other thing is he's not as versatile as the other two.
Right.
Now, maybe you can coach him to standing up, sometimes. We saw him do that with Danico Autry. I never thought Danico Autry was going to be on 2 feet, and he was, which was stunning to see. So maybe they think, hey, in certain situations we can teach him to play on 2 feet. Maybe they don't want to. Maybe they just want him down, on 3 downs, hand in the dirt, go get him. It all depends on what they want to do. And they talked about also taking skill over scheme and style.
Yep.
That we will find great players and then we will adjust what we do to fit what they do. And so, I think Bain fits into that as well. Look, it could all be for moot if Reese goes 2 and Bailey goes 3.
Right. Then what do you do?
And then you just take Bain at 4, or maybe you take Jeremiah Love. I mean, who knows? But we don't know. But it's the great mystery of how big of a problem do you think it is? Because like you said, history says it's a problem, but there's always an outlier. I mean, when Russell Wilson became the Seahawks quarterback at 5'10", everybody said that's a problem. He won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Okay. So, Aaron Donald, 280, 85 pounds, best defensive tackle in the game. I mean, these guys became great players despite whatever their shortcoming was. And you have to figure out if they are the outlier or not.
Exactly. And I have no doubt that Ruben Bain is going to be a productive NFL player. But picking at 4, you don't need to find a productive NFL player. You need to find a star. That's what you're looking for at number 4. You want to find a guy who is going to be an impact pass rusher for your team for the next 8 to 10 years and is somebody that offenses circle when they're looking at your game plan. I think Ruben Bain's going to be a really good football player. Is he going to be an all-pro level pass rusher? That's the question that you have to ask if you're the Titans. And can he, like you said, overcome the shortcoming of the short arms? We don't know how short the arms are yet. He's going to be measured tomorrow, right? I think that it's tomorrow morning. We should get those numbers. That might be the most important number that comes out of this combine. All the times, all the measurements, Ruben Bain's arm length, I think, might have the biggest impact on this draft.
Yeah, there's a guy who plays for the Bills named Ed Oliver. He's a defensive tackle, not a defensive end. And, Bain kind of reminds me of him. He's 6'1", 285, and doesn't have the longest arms. He was a great player at Houston, I'm not sure if the Bills got him in round 1.
They did.
Or in round 2.
He was the 9th overall pick, I want to say.
Okay, yeah. So, and he's been a good player for them. He's got 30 career sacks. He had 9.5 sacks in 2023. But, if Reuben Bain was Ed Oliver, you wouldn't be happy with that at 4. He's got to be better than that. He can't just be a good player. He's got to be a game wrecker for you. You need stars on your team. You need a star at number 4. And so, that's, again, like what we're talking about is we all think he's going to be a productive NFL player. There's no question in anyone's mind about that ultimately, if he has to be a defensive tackle in the league, he's going to be good.
Yes.
But at 4, look, if David Bailey can be Nick Bonito and come in and give you 12 sacks as a rookie, you want that, right? I mean, you want that. That's what you want.
100%. And that's the question the Titans are going to have to ask. And you bring up the scenario of what if it goes Mendoza, Reese, Bailey, 1, 2, 3, then you have to come to terms of, all right, is Reuben Bain worthy of the 4th overall pick? Or do we reach on another position maybe that, I mean, you mentioned Jeremiah Love, Caleb Downs would be another guy, Sonny Styles. It's like they don't play premium positions, but they're all really good football players and maybe the 3 best football players in this draft. That's the scenario that the Titans might end up in, is you're left with nobody out there who is a star at a premium position beyond those guys. What do you do? And that's what Mike Borgonzi is going to have to figure out over the next 2 months.
Well, and one of the questions I had for Robert Saleh yesterday was, you're picking 4th. Last year they picked 1st.
Yep.
Ideally, you never pick this high again. And frankly, if you do, somebody's probably getting fired. Does that put any pressure on you as to which side of the ball you address?
Yeah.
Because you may not get this chance to draft Jeremiah Love or who's the kid, the wide receiver out of Ohio State?
Carnell Tate,
or one of these guys up at the top of the board,
right?
Again, or do you think we're not going to get a chance to draft, an Arvell Reese physical freak again? Does that knowing that impact you? And he said no. He said the big thing is we have a quarterback, and it opens up the entire board for us. We can do whatever we want.
That's a very good point, and that's what Robert Saleh said. All doors are open for this team at pick number 4. But you look at it, you say it's probably going to be one of these 3 pass rushers. Arvell Reese spoke this morning. We've got to let Cory go for now. He's going to go check in with David Bailey and Reuben Bain, and Cory will rejoin us at 11. We'll get the updates from those, and we'll talk about Mike Borgonzi, who's going to speak later on today. Cory, thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you in a little bit.
All right, see you in a little bit. Bye.
Cory Curtis from News 2 joining us. He will be back at 11. Coming up next, Kevin Ingram is going to join us, the voice of Vanderbilt men's basketball. Final home game of the season for the Commodores. Tonight they take on Georgia. It's a big one. We'll get into it coming up next with Kevin. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. We are going to be joined shortly by Kevin Ingram, voice of Vanderbilt men's basketball. And it's a big one tonight for the Commodores. The Doors coming off back-to-back tight losses, and it was a tough one against Tennessee, a game that they were in control of for a little bit. There was back and forth, but a couple of tough shots. Tennessee gets 4 buckets, 4 stops down the stretch to get the win. And now a big one tonight, final home game of the season. And we are going to speak with Kevin Ingram coming up in just a second. He's going to join us via Zoom. Again, Cory Curtis was with us for the first 45 minutes of the show. He'll be with us again coming up at 11. He's out at the Combine. So we are going to hear from him about what David Bailey and Ruben Bain had to say. So excited to talk to Kevin. Again, it's a 6 o'clock tip over at Memorial Gym tonight, 5:30 pregame right here on 102.5 The Game. So you can tune in here. You can head out to Memorial. Last chance to see the Vanderbilt men's basketball team at home this season as they finish the year with 3 straight road games taking on Kentucky, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. So again, Kevin Ingram going to join us shortly. Vanderbilt and Georgia tonight. And this is a good Georgia team that they're middle of the pack in the SEC, currently an NCAA tournament team. Definitely not one that Vanderbilt can look past. But Kevin should be hopping into the Zoom any second now to join us to talk about this big game coming up tonight. And again, it is senior night for the Commodores. So they'll honor their seniors. Everybody healthy except for Frankie Collins. So that's good. Duke Miles in the lineup. And you'd think Tyler Tanner is starting to get healthy as well. He apparently had the flu over the last couple games against Missouri and Tennessee. So hoping that he's closer to 100% when they take on the Bulldogs coming up later on tonight. Again, Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. Next man up, Vanderbilt and Georgia coming up this evening at Memorial Gym. Commodores right now projected 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. So there's room to improve, but still in a very good spot for March Madness. Going to be in for the second straight year under Mark Byington. It just becomes a question of where they're going to be. Can they improve their seeding? And a win tonight would be big. Again, they finished the season with 3 straight road games at Kentucky, at Ole Miss, at Tennessee because of the flip-flop they had to do on the home and home. And again, we're going to be joined by Kevin Ingram coming up in a second. Been a little bit of a strange day.
Still waiting on him.
It's been a strange day trying to work out schedules because Cory obviously is up in Indianapolis, so we're trying to shuffle things and see if we can get this working. Apparently, Kevin's in the waiting room, Parker, if you can let him into the Zoom. We trying to figure this out. But again, it's a big one tonight, Vanderbilt and Georgia. And it's one of those, I don't want to say must win because that would imply that they're in danger of missing out on the tournament or something like that. But so it's not a must win for this team, but it does feel like an important one for Vanderbilt as they take on Georgia tonight. Last chance at a home game, and they've got to be able to get the things back on track here after back-to-back losses to Missouri and Tennessee. 6 o'clock tip-off tonight from Memorial Gym, Commodores and Bulldogs. And again, you can listen with Kevin Ingram and Tim Thompson at 5:30. So excited for that. Kevin Ingram going to join us here. Do we have him yet, Parker? We got him? All right. Kevin Ingram joins us now. Kevin, thanks for dealing. We had some technical difficulties there, but glad to have you on. Thanks for taking some time.
Absolutely, Jake. What's going on this morning?
Not much. We are Combine week throws a little bit of a wrench in our next man up schedule with everybody up there in Indianapolis, but glad that we could get you on here for a big one tonight. Vanderbilt and Georgia, final home game of the season. This is an important one, Kevin, because of that Ole Miss flip-flop, you've now got 3 straight road games to end the season. This one, to get the wheels back on after back-to-back losses feels important for Vanderbilt.
Yeah, it really does. I've kind of had those same thoughts. I mean, with the change in the schedule that resulted from the ice storm, and nobody's can really do much about that, and no one's to blame or anything like that. But yeah, we did have to flip flop the games with Ole Miss and play them here a few weeks ago. So that means three straight: Kentucky on Saturday, Ole Miss on Tuesday, and then Tennessee the following Saturday to finish the regular season. So it does feel like this game tonight maybe takes on a little added importance. Not that it wasn't important already.
Right.
Georgia's a really good team; and they're having a good season, but you look at where Vanderbilt is, two really tough losses back to back. Great comeback, fell 1 point short against Missouri, and then a big rivalry game back over the weekend. So, yeah, you do want to get back on track. You want to finish strong in SEC play. You got 4 games to go, and you look at the standings. You also want to get yourself in a position where you stay off playing on Wednesday, which it used to be only the bottom 4 teams played on Wednesday, but now it's the bottom 8 teams with 2 extra teams added, and you have 4 games on that opening day. So, yeah, you want to stay above that line. Vanderbilt's right there with Texas. Texas will have a tiebreaker. The Longhorns play Florida, so that's a tough matchup for them. So, yeah, we'll see how it all shakes out. But this does feel like an important game tonight at Memorial Gym.
Right, and you mentioned it, trying to stay out of that first day here in Nashville. Right now, Texas A&M is the 5 seed as it stands right now, but separated by just a game from Texas and Vanderbilt. So very muddled in the middle of these SEC standings. Kevin, got Duke Miles back on Saturday, and I know that's a huge boost for this team. Maybe a little bit of rust to shake off after missing a couple of weeks, but definitely going to be a huge piece for this team down the stretch and into the postseason.
Yeah, for sure. Having Duke back was gigantic on Saturday. He missed a few games, had a little procedure to clean up his knee, and just seeing him around and talk to him a little bit, it seems like he's feeling a whole lot better. And just having him on the court, he played 27 minutes, and it was just great to have him back and take some pressure off Tyler Tanner, who has had so much on his shoulders, and TT's been a little under the weather the last couple games and played on through it. But having Duke back made a big difference. And like you say, he was shaking off some rust. There's no question about it. I mean, he's always way better than 3 for 13 from the field, but hit a couple big threes, scored a dozen points, had 6 assists, a couple steals, got doing the things that Duke Miles does. Really good at getting you into your offense and making big plays. I would expect to see him take a step forward tonight. I feel like I just have this feeling that he's going to come out and have a big game, but just having him back on the court, his presence and just his positive energy and everything was big for this team.
You mentioned Tyler Tanner, and I know he's been under the weather the last couple of games, hopefully feeling better tonight, but the step that he's taken from year 1 to year 2 has just been unbelievable. Some of the things that he does out there on the floor on both ends, he has been great. How much has his jump led to this team taking a jump from a team that was a 10 seed a year ago to now possibly being a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, Jake, there's no question. Tyler Tanner has been amazing. He has to have taken as big of a jump as anybody in the country from freshman to sophomore season, from last year to this year. Last year was kind of a role player. He's finding his way as a freshman, and certainly he made some big plays and played some great defense. And, he just did not turn the ball over, and he had records for steals and things like that. But this year, it's all come together. I mean, you're talking about the shooting, the scoring. He can rebound. Obviously, he played teams that shoot a lot of threes. Guard's going to get some rebounds, so he's done a good job there. But the assist numbers have been off the charts. Just averaged 5 throughout the season. Shot high 30s from 3. The improvement in shooting has been really remarkable for him. But it just feels like he's taking this team on his shoulders at times, especially during this stretch of games when Duke Miles has been out. It's just so fun to watch. We talk about a guy with some positive energy that just shakes things up, makes things happen. You feel like there's a loose ball and he's streaking out to the other end for a dunk or setting somebody else up with a lead pass. He has been so fun to watch in this sophomore year. And gosh, I got to think when the all-conference teams are announced, he's going to be there. The young man from Brentwood has taken a monster step from last year to this year.
Talking to Kevin Ingram, the voice of Vanderbilt men's basketball. Kevin, when I watch this Vanderbilt team, clearly the guard play stands out, but I do have some concerns about the lack of size in the front court, and we're looking at a Georgia team who I believe leads the SEC in dunks, may even lead the country in dunks as well. Do you see Georgia's size giving Vanderbilt's front court a lot of issues tonight?
Yeah, it's going to be a big challenge. There's no question about that, and a lot of that starts with Santos Cyril, who has 71 dunks and 67 blocks in the season. I saw the stat in Georgia's notes that they lead the country in the percentage of field goals that are dunks, which is just amazing. But yeah, you got to try to slow him down in the paint and keep him from having just a dunkathon down there. But Cyril is a real game changer for them. He's 6'11" and 260 and takes up space and is really long and can finish around the rim, can block shots on the other end. He'll be a big challenge. I do feel like Vanderbilt, with this particular team, adding Jalen Washington has been a big addition from last year to this year. And also Jalen Leverett, the freshman, he's 6'11", and you've seen him play more lately. And talking to Mark Byington, he said, sometimes it just takes the big guys a little bit longer to come along than maybe some of the guards would as first-year players. But Leverett has given this team some key minutes in this stretch. I mean, go back to the Kentucky game, he was really good against Texas A&M. He made some big plays. So I feel like he might be a guy you could put in there and try to combat some of what Georgia does down low. I just love the way Jalen Washington and Devin McLaughlin have performed all season. Jay Wash, he averages 8 points and 5 rebounds. And, there was a game the other day, I guess it was a Tennessee game. You look up and he scored 8 points, but made such an impact on the game. He had 10 rebounds. He had a half dozen blocks. Devin McLaughlin's always so consistent, 11 and 5 against Tennessee and averaging 10 and 6. So right around his season averages, you'll see him score more. And he's been able to step out and hit some threes in recent games. And if those guys, talking about McLaughlin and Washington, can get outside and make some threes, just see a couple go in. They don't have to make 6 or 7, just hit a couple. It's a game changer because it also changes how the other team has to defend. But dealing with Georgia inside, back to your original question, I think that's going to be one of the big keys for Vanderbilt in tonight's game.
When I watched the game versus Tennessee, it was almost like I was watching an SEC football game with the amount of physicality that's been allowed. And really, it's been that way all year in the SEC. And so I kind of look at this through 2 lenses. One, the tough competition night in and night out can help once you get to the NCAA tournament in March, but also, too, that amount of physicality exerted. Could you see that hindering a team like Vanderbilt once they get to the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, it has been a real grind, and there's no question. I mean, every game, and Coach preaches it in practice and in shoot-arounds leading in these games, that we have to match the physicality of the other team. And, I mean, every game, it is a battle. And that game on Saturday was really physical. Sometimes it depends on how the game is called. And that game on Saturday, you saw the big guys for both teams really stack up the fouls. And, I mean, that's just going to happen just by the nature of the way these games are played. And A.K. Okereke is another guy who's really key for Vanderbilt. I mean, he can just do a little bit of everything at all different positions on the court. And a big dude with a big body who can definitely make a difference, bring the ball up and shoot threes and bang with the big dudes too. But yeah, these games are super physical. And I feel like, maybe we were talking about Tyler Tanner earlier. It kind of looked like maybe that was taking its toll a little bit on him, just the way the teams are so physical and trying to defend him. And, you want to see Tyler Nickel, get back rolling again, 2 from 3. Tennessee really limited his looks the other day by putting a bigger player on him. But yeah, you have to match the physicality every game. And you get in those tournament games, whether it's SEC tourney or then in the big dance in the NCAA tournament, those games are definitely going to be physical and they're going to be grinds. So you have to be ready for all of it.
Kevin, excited for a good one tonight. Final home game of the season for Vanderbilt taking on Georgia. Hoping there's a good crowd. I guess they're incentivizing a lot of the students to get out there. Mark Byington giving some vouchers for concessions and squishmallows if you show up early.
Yes.
So
Yes, I feel like one of my missions is to bring home a squishmallow from tonight's game, and so I'm going to try to get that accomplished. And I'm wondering if I get out there early, like I'm going to shoot around early afternoon, maybe I can get one of those vouchers too. So we'll see what we come up with.
I've been instructed to get one tomorrow as well when
right,
women's team takes on Alabama.
we know people. Maybe we can make this happen.
Kevin, thanks for coming on. Have a great call tonight.
All right, appreciate it, fellas.
Kevin Ingram, voice of Vanderbilt men's basketball, joining us ahead of a huge one tonight for Vanderbilt, taking on Georgia. We will talk about that game coming up next. And also, Tennessee, a tough one at Missouri last night, ending their 4-game winning streak. We'll get into all of that in hour number 2. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Second hour, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on your Wednesday morning, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Fun first hour, Cory Curtis with his first of two stints with us on the show today, and Kevin Ingram joining us in the last segment, getting ready for Vanderbilt and Georgia coming up tonight over at Memorial Gym. And again, that is a 6 o'clock tip-off. The pregame show starts at 5:30 on 94.9 The Fan. Coverage is presented by Gary Force Acura. Talking about that game tonight, Parker, it's a big one. Again, I don't want to say must win, but in terms of momentum, trying to peak at the right time, I think that this is one that they have to have. If you go into a 3-game losing streak and then you have to go on the road, you're at Kentucky this weekend, you're at Ole Miss right after that. I know Ole Miss isn't very good, but still, on the road in the SEC is never easy. And then you finish at Tennessee. Vanderbilt is in no danger of missing the NCAA tournament, but you don't want to spiral towards the end of the season. You want to start getting that upward momentum to peak at the right time in March, and I think that starts tonight against Georgia.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see how this goes because Georgia's they're not the best team we've ever seen, but they're firmly in the NCAA tournament picture. I believe they're an 8 or a 9 seed, according to Lenardi's latest bracketology. So Georgia's a really good team. They lead the SEC in dunks. They're right up there towards the top in the nation. I mean, Kevin read that stat about where most of their field goals come from, and that's, dunks. So Surreal's a really good player. I think that the size could give Vanderbilt some trouble, which is a main concern of mine for them. So this is I would almost classify this as a must win because you go into a 3-game stretch where you're on the road at Kentucky. Rupp's never easy. And then TBA is also really tough.
Yeah.
So this is a must win.
Yeah. I agree. I hate using the word must win in a game that, like, their season isn't over if they lose tonight. Like, they are still going to be an NCAA tournament team. They've put the resume forth to reach the NCAA tournament. I would say even if they lose out, obviously that's not ideal, but I think this is an NCAA tournament lock at this point. So must win is tough to throw around, but it's an important one. You do not want to keep this losing streak, this skid rolling into this road trip. Because again, Kentucky, disappointing this year, but still a tough team to beat, especially playing in Rupp Arena. Ole Miss, again, that's a game you should win, but on the road, you just never know. And then, of course, Tennessee, that rematch coming up in a couple of weeks out at TBA. That's always going to be a tough game as well. So big one tonight. Duke Miles in his second game back, talking with Kevin. He said that, you could tell he was maybe shaking off some of the rust. Hopefully he's back in more of a full go today. And the big thing, I think, is Tyler Tanner. He's still been able to put up good performances against Missouri and Tennessee, but it hasn't quite been what you want from Tyler Tanner as your star player. I would hope that he's feeling a little bit less sick. Mark Byington said that he had the flu last weekend. Would love to see him full go tonight. If you get a 100% Tyler Tanner and a 100% Duke Miles, I think this Vandy team might be tough to stop, especially inside Memorial Gym.
Well, as long as Frankie Collins and Duke Miles have been out, Tyler Tanner's really had to carry the load, which could take a toll on the player. And getting Duke Miles back on Saturday versus Tennessee, you could tell that there was almost a little bit of relief with him. And again, he may have been dealing with the flu. I have no idea. I'm sure that could have been the case. But getting Duke Miles back, you could tell the impact that it had with their guard play. And he was such a pivotal factor in the game that I thought. So you get Tyler Tanner back to 100%. You get Duke Miles back. Again, Frankie Collins, I don't see him playing again this year. I don't think it's going to happen.
It's one of those things. It's like you got to prove me wrong at this point. I don't expect him to be back. I'd be pleasantly surprised if he is, but he's been out since November, basically. At this point, I think he's done. I'm inclined to believe that he might be done for the season.
I even think he's done at Vanderbilt. I think his Vanderbilt career is over. I think he's at a different school next year.
I don't know what's going on. It's been strange, but we'll see. I've been surprised before. I hope that he comes back at some point this year, but obviously things don't seem to be trending in the right direction.
And for those of you that like to clip out of context what we said, I've not heard this from anybody.
Right.
It is pure my speculation.
Yeah,
That's all it is.
I always want to put it out there that like we are speculating. There is no information on any of this that we're saying right now, at least. Tennessee last night, that was a tough one out there in Missouri, Parker. I was watching and the Ament 3 from the corner that made it 12-2. I was like, man, Tennessee on the road just came out firing on all cylinders. Missouri's a good team, but you punch a team in the mouth like that, especially playing in their own gym. I thought Tennessee might be rolling to a 9th win in 10 games, but Missouri punched back. They got it close at halftime, ended up pulling away for a big win at home against Tennessee. Missouri is a tournament team as well. For Tennessee, it's not a big deal, but I think it slows the roll a little bit on what we were talking about yesterday with Tennessee of, man, this team is starting to peak at the right time. They take a loss, still have 3 games left. This is a big one coming up for Rick Barnes and company on Saturday against Alabama. That's a team that you're jockeying with for SEC tournament seeding, but also NCAA tournament seeding. When we looked at Joe Lunardi's bracketology yesterday, Parker, it had Alabama, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt 16, 17, 18. So this is a huge game coming up on Saturday in Knoxville for Tennessee against the Crimson Tide.
Always. And even the game last night was really big because Missouri is one of those teams that they're not great, but they're really, really solid across the board. They have size that gives teams fits. It gave Vanderbilt fits. It gave Tennessee fits last night. And not to mention you're playing at their place. So that was obviously a tough game. But losing 2 in a row, if you lose this Alabama game on Saturday, especially at home, that would be tough for morale, especially heading into the SEC tournament. The SEC standings, Tennessee was 2 in the SEC standings. So you get that double bye. If you lose a couple more, I don't know how far that drops you, but it certainly could not help.
Right. Tennessee is right now 10-5 in the SEC with 3 games to go. They're half a game up on Texas A&M for that final double bye spot, half a game behind Alabama and Arkansas, and obviously a lot of games still to be played this evening. Good news for Tennessee, they won't be facing Charles Bediako this time. As he tried to get back onto the team this week, but his request for an injunction was denied. So he is not going to be out there on the floor as he was in the first meeting between Alabama and Tennessee. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. I got a couple of texts that we can get to in the next segment. Again, Cory Curtis is going to rejoin us at 11 live from the NFL Combine. We'll get his thoughts on what Reuben Bain and David Bailey had to say as they are speaking up there in Indianapolis right now. Also, Mike Borgonzi going to speak in a couple of hours. We'll talk to Cory about what he wants to hear from the Titans GM. 615-737-1025. Catch Derek Mason with 1025 The Game live at Music City Indian, located at 1003 8th Avenue in Nashville this Saturday from noon to 2 p.m. Nash and the Preds Energy team will be there as well. Plus, you can enter to win Preds tickets and your chance to win a custom Predators Indian motorcycle signed by the whole team from Law Tigers and Music City Indian. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Wednesday. Cory Curtis going to rejoin us live from the NFL Combine coming up at the top of the hour. So excited for that. Also, just announced this morning, the Eagles are coming to First Bank Stadium on Saturday, May 9th. Tickets do not go on sale until next Friday, March 6th. We've got a pair of them to give away, and we will do that later this hour. So make sure you stay tuned for that. The Eagles coming to First Bank Stadium on Saturday, May 9th. We will give away a pair of tickets later on this hour. Couple of texts to get to on our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 2349 sent this in. Says, I know you're on basketball for the next few segments, but I do have a hockey question. Apparently, Sidney Crosby has been put on IR for the next 4 weeks. Do you think that will have an effect on players being able to play in the Olympics again in 4 years? And we had this conversation, Parker, on Monday. I really, really hope not. But Fiala was bad. Sidney Crosby is worse. Losing Sidney Crosby for a month is going to be really tough for the idea of getting NHL players back to the Olympics in 4 years. And I thought it wasn't that serious. I saw John Cooper after the injury said that they weren't ruling him out for the whole tournament. That was probably more mind games than anything, just trying to make sure that people couldn't scout them without scouting Sidney Crosby. But man, it's definitely not a good sign that players are going to be back in the Olympics in 4 years. I really hope that owners are able to see the big picture of what this does for the game of hockey and its popularity as a whole, rather than keeping the short-term focus on what if my player gets hurt. But it is hard. I mean, that costs the Penguins money when Sidney Crosby is not on the ice. It costs them money. It costs them wins. So we will see. That's going to be a big discussion as we lead up to the 2030 Winter Olympics. I really, really hope that they don't take the NHL players away.
And if you were to ask them, I don't think they'd want to go, to be honest. And here's just my kind of realistic point of view on all this. You know how excited everybody was after the Four Nations tournament? Right. And I thought that might help the NHL in terms of numbers. I think we'll be in a honeymoon phase for about 2 to 3 weeks. I don't think the Olympics is going to help the NHL ratings. I just don't. And I hate to say that, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
I think it gets the country excited about hockey. The NHL's got to capitalize on it. I think they've got to continue to market itself well. But I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be a year from now we look and say hockey is America's new pastime, right? Football is always going to be king. Basketball makes a lot of headlines because of the stars you have over there. Baseball is historically America's pastime. So hockey has always kind of been number 4. I'm not saying it's going to take a huge jump, but I think you got the nation excited about hockey again this past weekend. I think you'd be messing it up by taking NHL players out of the Olympics next time. But we will see.
I absolutely think that's the case.
2349. That's I did not see the Sidney Crosby news, so thanks for sending that in. It's not what you want to see, especially if we're going to get this to continue beyond just this year's Olympics. Matthew in Nashville texted in about this Vanderbilt and Tennessee women's basketball game coming up on Sunday, and Matthew in Nashville asked, and I actually was hoping someone would bring this up. He says, would be curious to hear y'all's thoughts on the lively discussion that was on Twitter yesterday about whether or not the Lady Vols are deserving of a spot in the NCAA tournament. Sports media personalities keep pointing out that they have 4 quad 1 wins, which is why they'll get in. But fans of the team are saying they don't deserve to get in, but they will because the selection committee wants to keep the streak alive of making every women's tournament. This is a very tough conversation. And I agree, surface level, you look at Tennessee, they play at LSU tomorrow night. That is not going to be an easy game to win. They play Vanderbilt on Sunday. Not going to be an easy game to win. Those are 2 top 10 teams in the country. The way Tennessee's playing right now, I wouldn't guarantee that they're going to win their first SEC tournament game either. If that happens, you're a 16-14 team. Or 16-13.
If
16-14.
They lose their first game in the SEC tournament. Yeah.
They'd be 16-14. It's really tough for me to wrap my head around a team that is just a game over 500 getting into the NCAA tournament. But overall record is not the only selection criteria. In fact, there's a lot of them. You look, here are some of the ones that would apply. Bad losses. Texas A&M last week is a bad loss at home for Tennessee. They don't really have another really bad one. Mississippi State wasn't great, but like A&M is the only one I point to and say that's a bad loss. Competitive in losses. Like, they have played some of these games tight. They lost by 2 to Texas. They lost by 7 to Oklahoma. So it's not like they're getting blown out by everybody. There have been blowouts in there, UConn, South Carolina, but they've been competitive with some really good teams. Net ranking is the one that I think is going to, net ranking and observable component, I think, is what's going to get them in. The net ranking being in the top 25, the metrics do like this Lady Vols team, and they've played one of the toughest schedules in the entire country. And I think you watch them play and you say, that is an NCAA tournament quality team. 16 and 14 would be tough to justify it. I do think they get in. I do. Part of it could be what Matthew is implying of they're the only team in NCAA women's basketball that has made every single women's tournament, all 44 of them. They have been in it. So I think the selection committee may err on the side of putting them in if it's close. I think they get in, but they're going to get in as 8, 9, 10 seed probably if things go the way you expect them to over the next week and a half. And that's not the Lady Vol standard, obviously. So it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward. We discussed this a little bit yesterday, Parker, about does Kim Caldwell stick around? Like, how quick of a trigger is Danny White going to have on this program? I think Kim Caldwell gets another year. I don't think she gets fired. She went to the Sweet 16 in year 1, but she's got some questions to answer of how are you going to sell your system to these players? Because elite players want to put up stats. I mean, that's what it is. You can convince them to play for the team and you can convince them to be a part of the program and be good teammates. But these players want to play at the next level. And you've got to be able to showcase yourself. And it's tough to sell these elite players in the portal, elite high school players. You're going to come here and you're going to play 22 minutes a game, and we're going to sub you in and out every 3 or 4 minutes. Like, she's got to find a way to sell people on that. And she's done it to some recruits, but I don't know how long that lasts if you're not winning. And this year they have not been winning very much.
Yeah, and you got to remember, too, that Kim Caldwell was a direct Danny White hire because Danny White has a basketball background. He made this hire. He made the decision to go outside of the Pat Summitt tree and hire her. And not to mention, too, they gave her an extension at the end of last season.
Yep.
So there's all of that factored in as well. But in terms of I've just always kind of grown up with the understanding that good coaches fit their system around what their players do well versus the other way around and trying to make the players fit your system. And I really started getting these doubts, after the UConn game, after the South Carolina game, because it just doesn't allow the players, if you're pulling 5 in, 5 out, to get any sort of rhythm. So that's very concerning. And Andrea Carter, who is a former Lady Vol player under Pat Summitt, I mean, bashed him
It tells you a lot.
It does. There's no amount of NIL money that can fix that issue that Kim Caldwell has. So that's certainly got to be addressed. And hopefully, fingers crossed, because I want to see Kim Caldwell succeed. I like her. Hopefully she starts fitting her system more around what her players do well.
It's going to be a very interesting offseason for that program, depending on what happens down the stretch here. Like, that team is talented enough to figure things out. Are they in a spot culturally right now where they're going to do that? Doesn't seem like it based on what we've been hearing out of that program. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Big one, Tennessee and Vanderbilt coming up on Sunday. That is a 1 p.m. tip out there in Knoxville. I'm excited for that one. But before that, of course, Vandy has Alabama at home tomorrow. Tennessee is on the road at LSU. 615-737-1025. Something big is coming to warm up Nashville. Right Time HVAC and Cromwell Media are about to change one family's winter. Stay tuned for how you could win. Coming up next, we'll get back into football. Cory Curtis going to rejoin us at 11 a.m. live from the Combine. So excited for that. We'll get to hear what Reuben Bain and David Bailey had to say when they stepped to the podium as the defensive linemen, pass rushers, linebackers, all getting ready for their workouts tomorrow. But coming up next, there was a report yesterday about what the Titans could be targeting in free agency. We'll get into that. Also, some other news and notes that have popped up around the Combine. All of that coming up when we return. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up. 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. NFL Combine rolling along in Indianapolis. Cory Curtis up there talking with Ruben Bain and David Bailey. They are speaking at the podium right now, so we will talk with Cory when he rejoins us at 11. But a couple of news and notes during the first few days of the NFL Combine. Big one around the Titans. Tony Pauline, who is a draft analyst, covers the Jets, put out an article yesterday talking about some free agency rumors that he's heard. And the Titans linked heavily to Alec Pierce along with the Raiders. And we heard something similar from Jeremy Fowler around the Super Bowl of those are the two teams that are going to be aggressive when it comes to free agent wide receivers. Alec Pierce, not expected to hit free agency, but if he does get there, the Titans and Raiders expected to be aggressive in trying to land him. His price tag likely to be around $27 million per year. But if the Titans cannot land Alec Pierce, the expectation per Tony Pauline is for them to target Wan'Dale Robinson. Brian Daboll, part of the decision to draft Wan'Dale Robinson out of Kentucky. He also played with Will Levis at Kentucky. I would not hate it with Wan'Dale Robinson. I do wonder about his fit. Does that mean Chim Dike is playing on the outside more consistently and you move Robinson into the slot full time? It'll be intriguing to see how much the Titans value Wan'Dale Robinson in free agency if he is one of the top guys out there when the open market comes open in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, for me, it's just the Dayball connection, right? And I feel like you could get him at a relatively cheap price. I think you might be able to get him around 18 to 20 mil, which is the number that I've seen. So
yeah, that's what he said. I think 15 to 18 was what they said.
Very, very reasonable. A guy that eclipsed 1,000 yards receiving last year could absolutely help you. He's just an electric playmaker that you could probably play in the slot and maybe bump him outside to like a Z. I don't know. That may be a bit of a stretch, but still, he's a guy that you can acquire for cheap, but he's a playmaker, and the Titans need plenty of those.
Yeah, I think when you look at the guys who are actually going to get out there, there are three that stand out of this would be a I don't know, I don't want to say big time signing, but it would be an impact signing at wide receiver. Robinson is one of them. He's a 1,000-yard receiver from last year in just 16 games. Romeo Doubs, I think, is another guy that you'd look at and say, he could be a red zone threat for this team. He could immediately step in and be one of your starting wide receivers. And then Juwan Jennings is one that we've talked about a lot. He has been good in San Francisco, but has never really been the top option. What will he do if he is one of the top options with the Titans, but has Middle Tennessee connections, has connections with Robert Saleh? I think those are the three that I'd highlight if Alec Pierce doesn't hit the market as expected. One of those three would be the ones that I think the Titans go get. And if they go get them, I think that probably means Calvin Ridley's gone. That's been the discussion we've had the last couple of days. I think if you feel confident you can get one of those three guys to come, you could argue that they would be an upgrade over Calvin Ridley. If you can't get one of those three guys, I wouldn't hate keeping Calvin Ridley around. And again, those are the discussions that Mike Borgonzi, Robert Saleh, Brian Daboll all have to have over the next 2 weeks leading up to free agency.
Yeah, who's the third guy that you mentioned? Wan'Dale Robinson,
Juwan Jennings,
and
Romeo Doubs.
Those are the four.
Well, because like Alec Pierce, I don't think is going to hit free agency.
I don't either, because from what I've seen, it looks like the Colts are going to try to work out a deal with him. So I don't think, and typically that's how it goes in free agency. Good players don't hit the open market, typically.
Right.
And I think Alec Pierce is a guy that the Colts certainly want to keep, because to me, I thought that Alec Pierce was a really good player. And after last year, that just kind of affirms what I already thought. I thought he had a fantastic year. So I don't think the Colts are going to let him hit the open market. But as far as Juwan Jennings, Wan'Dale Robinson, I think those are legit players. And Romeo Doubs as well, that's an interesting one too. Because when he's been healthy in Green Bay, he's been very effective. So
right.
I'd be interested in that for sure.
Yeah, and it's just, you look at the other free agent options out there, those are the three guys, again, assuming Alec Pierce doesn't hit the open market. That's been the reporting, is that the Colts aren't going to let him out of the building. But outside of those three guys, I don't see anybody who could be a long-term solution at wide receiver. I think it's Jennings, it's Dobbs, it's Robinson that you could get 3 good years out of. All of those guys are relatively young. Jennings is 28, so a little bit older, but Robinson's 25, Dobbs is 25. You're going to get the prime of their careers if you sign them. Everybody else, I think there are flaws. Like Deebo Samuel, older, seems to have lost a step. I would be okay with maybe bringing him in on a 1-year deal,
but all the off-field
that's
stuff
it.
too is
Right. I don't know if that's, again, Robert Saleh's been in the building with him in the past. He'll be able to tell you more than anyone whether that's somebody they want to bring in. Tyreek Hill, 32, speed guys. I struggle to see him coming back from that brutal knee injury and being the same guy he used to be at 32. I think he's also going to go to a contender, whether that's back to Kansas City, maybe he goes to Buffalo, one of those places that it's win now and he can go out and play a role. Mike Evans, I don't think is leaving Tampa. Keenan Allen, again, it's a 1-year thing. Rashid Shaheed is kind of a duplicate of Chimdike. So I look around and I say, anybody else that you're going to get outside of those 3, 4, if you include Pierce, those guys, is not going to be a major impact for this team, even if they have 1 decent year left in them. So it's got to be one of those 3. If the Titans are going to make a splash at wide receiver, and the reporting that we've seen makes you think that that is their plan. Jeremy Fowler said they're going to be aggressive in trying to get a free agent wide receiver. Now, Tony Pauline reporting that they would be a major player for Pierce if he hits the market. They'd pivot to Wan'Dale Robinson. So I would expect the Titans to get one of these guys out of the I would prefer Pierce, of course, out of those 4. He's young. He's the most accomplished, I would say, the most explosive. He's going to cost the most, but I would say Pierce would be number 1. It's tough. It's kind of splitting hairs from there. I would probably go Dobbs 2, Robinson 3, Jennings 4. I wouldn't be over the moon thrilled with any of them, but I also would think that it would make your offense better and it gives Cam Ward a reliable option on the outside.
Yeah, obviously Pierce is going to be my number 1 too. He's the favorite in all this. He is a Pro Bowl caliber player if put in the right system. So as far as Wan'Dale, I think I'd like him second, just given the familiarity with Dayball.
Yeah, and that's a good point.
Jawan Jennings is one of those just junkyard dogs, and you infuse a little bit more of that into the Titans DNA, I don't think that could hurt whatsoever. And I think you need more of that. And there's some DBs, if we flip to the other side, who I believe are junkyard dogs as well, that you get more of that on the Titans roster, and suddenly this team starts to look a little bit more competitive on Sundays, which I would love.
It's a good point. And I think what we're seeing tells you Titans probably going to be very involved in the wide receiver market when free agency officially opens 2 weeks from today. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. You can text or call our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Keegan says, fellas, we sign Romeo Dobbs and he will instantly be Cam's favorite target. He's a top 3 out and zig route artist in the league. Need 8 yards, he'll get you 9, which is half more yards more than Jennings will get you. My top target, he's the Mekhi Lemon of my free agent class. I believe with Keegan there that Dobbs could be good, and that's why I had him second. I do think none of these guys are number 1s, but you need somebody who can be a reliable number 2 for Cam Ward. You're gonna. I
think Alec Pierce probably has he's not a number 1, I don't think, but I think he has the higher ceiling.
I agree with that. I think the size and the speed combination for Pierce gives you a higher ceiling. Again, I don't think he gets out, but Dobbs would be a good addition for this Titans team on the outside. You have him, Chimdike, Alec Iamaner, and hopefully a draft pick. That's a good top 4. You probably need another veteran addition on the back end, but I think that's a good start to a wide receiver room. 615-737-1025. Cory Curtis will join us again at the top of the hour live from Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. We'll get into some more news and notes around the Combine coming up next. There were some interesting stories that came out with everybody I'm looking for the word, circulating around Indianapolis.
Matriculating.
Descending upon Indianapolis. There you go. No fights in Starbucks this year, at least yet, but
There's still time.
There's still time, but stories have come out, and there's some interesting ones. Also, we will give away those Eagles tickets May 9th coming up at First Bank Stadium at Vanderbilt. They are not on sale yet. They start to go on sale next Friday. We will give away 2 tickets coming up next. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman and Parker Kelly alongside you on your Wednesday morning. Cory Curtis from News 2 will be back with us at the top of the hour, live from the NFL Combine. We'll get his impressions from two very likely draft targets for the Titans at number 4, Reuben Bain, David Bailey. Both spoke earlier on. We will get his thoughts as he is boots on the ground up there in Indianapolis. But there have been some stories circulating around the NFL Combine. Want to get to a few of these before we wrap up this second hour. Davis Webb going to call plays for the Broncos. So Sean Payton giving up play calling in Denver. Interesting stuff there, especially because, I mean, Davis Webb was already kind of a hot up-and-coming name as a head coaching candidate. Not that Denver is trying to, hide him under the rug, and it's like, oh, no, he's okay. He doesn't call plays. You don't want him. But it is interesting for Peyton, longtime play caller, to give up his duties and give it to Davis Webb, which in all likelihood probably means he ends up leaving at the end of next year if things go well out there at Mile High.
Yeah, he was in the mix for maybe getting some head coaching interviews this year as well. So
yep,
certainly if you do well, that is a bit of a surprise. But that goes to show you, because Sean Payton's just not going to willy-nilly give up play calling. So that shows you how much he believes in Davis Webb. So interesting development out there in Denver. And also, too, I saw that Dave Canales is giving up play calling as well in Carolina.
I did not see that, actually.
Yep.
And I think that might be a trend among head coaches, is not everybody needs to be Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. And that, I think, was part of the undoing with Brian Callahan, is he thought he could be one of those guys and he neglected some of the other aspects of the job. You do have to be able to be the head coach, be the CEO. And some guys can handle doing both. Some guys can't. I respect it when coaches willingly give it up, because it shows they're willing to be flexible if it's in the best interest of their team. So a couple of changes there in terms of offensive play calling. Saw this, the Browns talking about their quarterback situation. They said Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson will be part of the options to compete for the starting quarterback job in 2026. Cleveland, I don't know if they know what they're doing at quarterback, but that might be one of the most interesting camp battles of all time. If they bring in another body, like let's say they draft Ty Simpson with their second first-round pick, and it's Shedeur Sanders, Deshaun Watson, and Ty Simpson, first-round pick, battling to be your starting quarterback. Hard Knocks, you know where you're going next year. You have to go there. Have to.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think all of this is just so interesting. And going back to the play calling thing with Canales, I believe the reason was he didn't feel like he was as present when it came to challenging plays. So, and to be honest, he's looked up to guys that have called plays for so long, and he said he had to put his ego aside for all this, which I'm sure you definitely have to do if you're going to give up play calling. But I think all this is so interesting.
Well, and yeah, like you saw it with Callahan, he had a bad first season, but I think you look back and the nail in his coffin was not knowing the rule of an elbow equals 2 feet and not challenging that play. Like, things happened after that led to him being fired, but I think a lot of people were like, okay, this guy probably doesn't know what he's doing when that happened. And part of that is he had to get the next play call in, right? If he wasn't calling plays, he could have taken a better look at that. He could have talked to people and he could have made a better decision. So that is an important part of it too, is on game days, play calling is taking away from some of the other responsibilities as a head coach. Here is the most interesting headline, I think, that came out of yesterday. Ryan Poles, the GM of the Bears, and Nick Sirianni, the head coach of the Eagles, were both asked about their veteran wide receivers and whether they could commit to DJ Moore and AJ Brown being on the team. Both of them, without saying no, said no. Ryan Poles said, we're keeping everything on the table. We'll have to see what happens there. Same thing with Nick Sirianni, said, I can't guarantee anything. So there's a good chance DJ and AJ could both be on the move this offseason. AJ's not coming back here. I think if he goes somewhere, New England is flashing lights. That's the number one option to play under Mike Vrabel again. But DJ Moore could be an interesting option for the Titans. It'd be more expensive. You'd have to take on that contract. You'd have to give up a draft pick of some sort, but probably not a high one. But that could be a better option as a veteran presence than what's out there in free agency for the Titans. So I wouldn't close the door on that one. But DJ Moore and AJ Brown both could be out on the trade market this offseason.
I think AJ Brown played his last snap as an Eagle. I do.
I agree.
But we all know what the thing we think the destination could be. This to me screams New England or Buffalo. Those are the two.
Yeah.
As far as DJ Moore, I cannot understand if I'm the Bears why I wouldn't bring him back, because he was so big for Caleb Williams last year.
Yeah.
And I know you have Rome Odunze, but Rome Odunze also had some injury problems last year. So you need another reliable guy.
Let's look at the cap space for the Bears. Like, is this an issue for Chicago heading into 2026?
It could be, because I haven't checked.
So they have negative cap space right now. So they do have to make some sort of moves.
Sense. Yeah.
And DJ Moore has the highest cap hit on the team at $28.5 million. So you can't cut him. The dead cap for cutting him would be more than the cap hit. So you can't cut him. He's 29 years old. I think a trade could be likely with DJ Moore. You look at the options if they get rid of him. You keep him for one more year, and there's an out after next season. But I would not be surprised if he gets moved, which maybe the Titans look and say, hey, if we can trade for him, it's kind of a one-year deal for DJ Moore. He's a proven guy that probably wouldn't cost you with that contract more than a fourth or a fifth at most. So I wouldn't hate it. I think that could be an option for the Titans in this offseason if they want to go upgrade the wide receiver room via trade rather than via free agency. 615-737-1025. The combine rolling on all week long, and you get the entire NFL world descending on one spot. You're going to get stories coming out of it. We've already seen some of these big ones pop up, and I'm sure there will be more throughout the week. So we'll keep you updated. Titans out there. Mike Borgonzi going to speak later on today. Maybe we'll get some news and notes on what the Titans plan for free agency and the draft process look like. And then workouts start tomorrow. And tomorrow is one of the days, if you're a Titans fan, you want to be locked in. You'll get to see Arvell Reese at least is going through combine workouts. I believe I saw Ruben Bain is not. And Cory just was part of the press conference with Bain, so we can ask him that on the other side. I'm not sure about David Bailey, but I do know Arvell Reese is going to be going through the workouts. I also saw Mekhi Lemon is going to go through all the workouts on the wide receiver side. So if that's true,
my draft crush,
that's somebody that the Titans would want to look at as well. 615-737-1025. We've been teasing it. Let's do it. Let's give away some tickets here. Just announced this morning, the Eagles going to be playing at First Bank Stadium at Vanderbilt on Saturday, May 9th. These tickets don't go on sale until Friday, March 6th, so a week from Friday at 10 a.m. You can get two right now if you are caller number 4 at 615-737-1025. Caller number 4 wins a pair of tickets before you can buy them to see the Eagles at First Bank Stadium on Saturday, May 9th. Caller number 4 at 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Wednesday. Cory Curtis rejoins us from the Combine on the other side here on Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game. Final hour on this Wednesday. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are now rejoined live from Indianapolis at the NFL Combine by Cory Curtis from News 2. Cory, you've spent the last hour out there talking to some big name prospects for the Titans. Ruben Bain, David Bailey both spoke. What were your impressions from both of them, getting to hear from them for the first time?
Cory, you're muted.
Cory might be muted.
Sorry, we
There
only
we
had
go.
all commercial break to work that out. But no, look, they were really impressive. Ruben Bain is Cam Ward with his hand in the dirt. I eat, drink, and sleep football. And, he is a football player. And he made that clear, said, didn't just say he had a great meeting with the Titans, said he killed it. And led on to believe that he hopes, things work out for them at number 4. Just said it was a great meeting. They really vibed well. His energy, their ability to talk ball, was really on point with each other. And, everything about him was about football and being a football player. And that, for me, that's always a really, really good place to start. Of course, he was asked about the arm length thing. He said it's never been an issue. Quite obviously, he wouldn't have gotten to this point if it was an issue for him. But he said he'd never heard about it until probably about midway through the season, and that's when all the draft stock started up for him. So that's, of course, when that's going to start happening. He said none of the teams have really said anything to him about it other than just to keep up his technique and keep producing. But it will continue to be a topic, because that's what we do at the Combine. As for David Bailey, he weighs about 250 pounds, but he's a grown man. I mean, he is long, and he is big, and he is an extremely cerebral person. Graduated Stanford in 3 years. And, one of the things I asked him about is, he said at Stanford, he primarily played on 2 feet, but at Texas Tech, he did transition to putting his hand in the dirt in passing situations. And so that is something that's coming along to him. Another, impressive guy, with all of the brain stuff that they're going to talk about, I'm going to assume he's going to perform very well in that.
Yeah, it's a good point. David Bailey, 3-year player at Stanford, teammate with Alec Iamaner out there as well.
Yep.
So
he did talk about that. Did talk about talking with those guys, talking with Alec, preparing for the draft. But not just a 3-year player, graduated in 3 years,
right,
which is really impressive.
Right. No media members took a tape measure up there while Ruben Bain was speaking and did a quick measurement.
No, but he was not a T-Rex. I mean, look, you look at him and you go, okay, how long are the arms? And he and all 3 of them, the body types are vastly different. No, they are 3 completely different looking people. And so again, we talked about it a couple hours ago, dissecting what it is, what's the upside, what you think you can coach, what you think you can't coach, what's the ceiling, what's the floor, because it's not like, well, if we don't get this guy, we'll get this guy, because they're the same thing. None of them are the same thing.
Yeah, and with Ruben Bain, Robert Saleh said as much, that his tape is undeniable, and you really like what he was able to do in the biggest moments of the college football playoff. And the arm length is something that matters. They wouldn't measure it if it didn't matter. But how much does it matter becomes the question. I did see a tweet sometime in the last hour. I forget who put it out there, but it was like, patiently waiting on Ruben Bain's arm length. If it's below 31 inches, he will not be allowed to compete at the NFL level. So
I'm pretty confident he will be. But, we were talking about it. You see some mock drafts. Hey, DeMarco, good to see you. I'm good, man. Congratulations on the job. Yep. That was DeMarco Murray.
DeMarco Murray just walking by. There you go.
He's now the running backs coach of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Right.
And by the way, still looks like he can play. But what were we talking about?
Ruben Bain and the arm length.
Yeah. I mean, it's an issue, and the body types are all different, but but he's destructive, and he is also going to be a hand in the dirt guy. He's
Yep.
not going to be a stand-up guy, and it's just what you want. One of the things this vastly different, like from him and Arvell Reese. It's obvious Arvell Reese is 20 years old. You just look at him, and he looks like he facially like he just got out of high school. Physically, obviously he's a man, but you see Ruben Bain, and there's some dings there. There's some rust. There's there's a grown man there. He's been through some wars, and it's like having a Lamborghini versus a Hummer. You know what I mean? It's just what are you trying to destroy with it? That's the question. And that I really enjoyed getting to meet all of these guys, and I have a favorable opinion of all of them, but I walk away going, gosh, I really like Ruben Bain, and I can't wait to watch him at the next level.
Yeah, and Jeffrey Simmons and Cam Ward have both advocated for Ruben Bain in their own ways, so we'll see if he ends up being the pick. I know Arvell Reese said he's going to do all of the drills. He's going to run the 40. Did Ruben Bain or David Bailey give any impressions of how much they're going to do?
I had to split time between the two of them because they went at the same time.
Right.
So I did not hear how much of each they each planned to do. So we didn't necessarily get into that, but the main question for Bain was simply arm length,
right?
And we talked about it last hour. Look, this event is made for Arvell Reese. It's not made for Ruben Bain. The videotape is what's made for Ruben Bain.
Yes.
Okay, and so you have to use both those to come up with your conclusions.
Yes, and I would expect Ruben Bain not going to do much at the combine. I don't think he really needs to. I think the most important thing is probably obviously the measurements that we've talked about and doing all the interviews. And like you said, Ruben Bain claims to have killed his interview with the Titans, which is good to hear. David Bailey, I'm not so sure. I would guess he'd do some things, but I don't know exactly how much. So that'll be revealed to us tomorrow because that's when they'll be out there on the field.
Well, it's interesting because of the different style of players that they are. With David and Arvell being more upright on 2 feet, I can see the 40 being more relevant. I can see the 3-cone drill being more relevant because there's more change of direction. There's more getting around the corner for those guys. Where with Ruben Bain, you're talking about short explosion. You're talking about power and quickness, and in the things that measure that.
And again, very different players, all going to be asked to do the same thing, and that's hit the quarterback. Titans will have some decisions to make depending on who is there for them when they come on the clock at number 4. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Our phone and text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com if you want to text or call. We've got 2 more segments with Cory live from the NFL Combine. Later on today, Mike Borgonzi is going to speak. We'll talk about maybe what we could hear from him, not just about these prospects at the Combine, but also free agency as the open market looms just 2 weeks away. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Cory Curtis, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game, Jake Lyman, joined by Cory Curtis, live from the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. Workouts start tomorrow, but hearing from the prospects today, top three guys for the Titans that we've been talking about pretty much since the season ended. Arvell Reese, Reuben Bain, David Bailey all spoke this morning. But later on this afternoon, we'll hear from Mike Borgonzi, the Titans general manager. And Robert Saleh yesterday was interesting. He stopped short of talking too much about free agency and what that might look like. I'll be interested today to hear what Mike Borgonzi's thoughts are on free agency. Again, not going to get into strategy too much, but the Titans have the most cap space in the league. I'd like to hear how the GM thinks that's going to look when free agency opens in a couple of weeks.
Well, I mean, he's not going to unveil the plan. We're going to spend $30 million here. We're going to sign this guy.
Just talked to his agent actually, and he's going to be coming here.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, he does have to have a plan. You know, he does need to find starters. I mean, there are holes, especially in the secondary. You know, he's going to have to go find some starters, but you know, most of those can't be long-term deals. Most of those are short-term deals. You know, as you patch your team together while you build through the draft. But they do have $100+ million to spend. You know, they still have to plan for Jeffrey Simmons extension, a Peter Skoronski extension, you know, for Cam Ward down the line. But, you know, they've got enough money to go bring some players in and start for this football team.
Right. I mean, you have over $100 million in cap space. I would assume he's also going to be asked about the moves that could add to that cap space. L'Jarius Sneed, Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard. Again, he's not going to go up to the podium and say, oh, yeah, we're releasing X, Y, and Z. But I think you might be able to tell based on the way he answers the question what the long-term plans are for those guys.
Yeah, you're trying to read the tea leaves. You're trying to read the body language. You know, some GMs are more adept at that, you know, whole thing of saying nothing. We'll get a little bit more feel for how adept, you know, Borgo is on that. I mean, you know, I think we all expect L'Jarius Sneed to be released.
Yes.
But with, you know, and I think the feeling's probably 50-50 or so on Calvin Ridley. And then, you know, who knows on Tony Pollard. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting yesterday with Robert Saleh. He was asked about a lot of players, and we talked earlier about his comments on Femi Oladejo and T'Vondre Sweat. He was asked about Calvin Ridley and L'Jarius Sneed and kept things relatively general when discussing those two. Again, maybe reading too far into this, but those decisions have to happen relatively soon. Again, the legal tampering period starts in 12 days. So there's going to have to be some choices on those veteran players probably within the next week.
Yeah. I mean, look, if those decisions aren't already made, I would be stunned. But you know, it's when they decide to do them. And I don't know what the rhyme or reason is to that. Robert Saleh and Brian Dable are walking by right now. For the Titans. I'm in a hallway where everybody goes back and forth from the convention center to Reliant Stadium. And like it's lunchtime. So right now you've got a huge traffic flow, and it's kind of been a who's who in the NFL going by for the last 30 minutes or so.
There we go.
Darren Bates is here. There's no boombox on his shoulder though, thankfully. Darren Bates always had the boombox in the Titans locker room.
Yes.
But yeah, so there's a whole lot of people, you know, in the building right now. It's interesting.
I love it. And again, we appreciate you, Cory, making time for us while you're up there in Indy. Lots of big storylines going on up there. Cory, I heard you mention this earlier, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. The Jaguars and Rams not sending head coach and GM up there. What are your thoughts on those decisions? Because I get it. You don't want to tint your view of a player and what they can do on the football field just based on a couple of 10 to 15 minute meetings. But I do feel like in this process, you can never have enough information, which is why it's a little strange not to send your big decision makers to an event like this.
Well, I mean, just look at a guy like Isaiah Wilson.
Right.
I mean, that he was drafted in the COVID year. And you have to wonder if it wasn't the COVID year. And that, by the way, was one of the worst first rounds of all time, not just for the Titans, but for everyone. And so, there was less information to be had that year than in most years, and it was the worst draft. Is that coincidence? Maybe. But I think that, when you're missing completely on who the person is, which is what they missed on in that, that leads you to ask some questions. Look, the Rams did it, and then they drafted really well. And so, for them, they're like, okay, we like this system that we've got. And the guy with the Jaguars is from that system. So, of course, he's going to believe in it and think that's the way to go. I just think, with everything that's on the line, jobs, millions of dollars, I would think you would want every bit of questions you could, because, I guess you could say, take the 3 guys we heard from this morning. You could say, just grade them on the film, just grade them on the film and what you see. Don't talk to any of them, because after I talked to them all or heard them all speak, I gravitate to Reuben Bain. And so do they not want that to happen? Because, David Bailey's really the better player. You can't let that affinity for a guy because you like a guy sway you. But I don't know if that personality trait of, hey, we really like this guy, is enough to sway teams off of what they really believe in guys. They're doing this a lot differently than you and I are. They are looking at hours and hours and hours of videotape and, scouring all of this stuff and talking to far more people about these guys than we are. Because, who they are is part of it. It is part of it. And that's what, it's part of what Cam Ward is. And, I think, that's why I say when I hear Reuben Bain basically be like Cam Ward with his hand in the dirt, where he is just all football, I like that guy. He's not going to be distracted when he gets to camp. His focus is going to be on being the best player he can be, not worried about, touring Europe or when he's going to get a rap album out, or, how many of his boys are living with him. He's concerned about winning football reps. And I think that's a valuable piece to the puzzle for me.
Yeah, Mike Borgonzi and a lot of people around the NFL talk about the touch points with these guys during the draft process and how valuable it can be. And maybe a lot of that is last year we heard it because the Titans were in the market for a quarterback. And this strategy it would not work if you're drafting a quarterback. Like, you can't just be like, oh, we're going to judge him on the tape. We're not going to go talk to him at all.
What if you never talked to Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders?
Right.
I mean, come on. It's not comparable.
So I get the reasoning behind it. I just think that it's more the Rams have special people that they've brought in Sean McVay and Les Snead, and we've seen what they've been able to do even when they've had limited draft picks over the last few years. Mm-hmm. They've been able to build a consistent winner. Not everybody's going to be able to use that strategy and have success. I struggle to see this becoming a new trend. I think the Jaguars are going to try it out. They'll see how it goes. But I think that most of the NFL is going to stick with the tried and true of, we're going to get as many touch points, as much exposure to these guys as possible, because we want to be able to say we did all of our homework on draft night.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. They're going to try it until it doesn't work, right? Because, I know a lot of people pointing out how well they've done in later rounds. So Puka Nacua, was he 4th or 5th round?
5th, I want to say.
4th round. Well, Amon-Ra St. Brown was a 4th round pick,
right?
And the Lions were here. So it doesn't make you smarter. Okay, like I said, it's just you're leaning more on the tape, and you're trusting the tape to guide you in the right direction. And the tape should be where it all starts in the first place. When you go too far in the other direction, then that absolutely can do that. But I just, like we're saying, I think not having information that you could have doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, especially because it's not just the combine. They're not bringing guys in on 30 visits either.
Yeah,
which is like
that's nuts.
That seems crazy to me, because you do want to know how these guys interact with people in your building, right? Like the quote from Robert Saleh that we played earlier from yesterday. saying Cam Ward knows the name of every person in this building, and he's stopping by and saying hi to me every single time he's over there doing rehab. Like, that stuff does matter too. Of course, when you're drafting these guys, the most important thing is, are they good football players? But you do have to know how they're going to fit into the culture of your organization and your locker room.
Yeah, I mean, look, Mike Vrabel was another one of those people who knew everybody in the building, and he wanted his players to treat everyone in the building with respect. And do you remember the Ed Reed story about the rookies all leaving the towels on the floor in the locker room, and Ed Reed, picking them all up and, basically saying it's what you do when nobody's looking that matters. And, this is where you get an idea of, does this guy walk in the building like he owns the place, or does he walk in the building like he's honored to be there and he wants to be a part of what makes it a championship football team? And I do think there's value in learning that about who guys are.
Yeah, and we won't know whether this is a successful strategy for a few years, right? Like, the Jaguars will make their picks this year, and we'll see how they pan out. But I did think that was interesting. They're going away from the norm of trying to get to know these prospects as much as possible. They're saying, we don't want to know you. We want to know what you can do on the football field.
Well, the Titans will be here. I'm confident of that.
Yes, that is true. Robert Saleh spoke yesterday. Mike Borgonzi will be speaking later this afternoon, and we'll keep you updated throughout the day here on 102.5 The Game if there are any interesting nuggets that come out of Mike Borgonzi at the podium up there in Indianapolis. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to text or call, our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We've got one more segment with Cory live from the Combine. We will wrap up with Corey Curtis from News 2 coming up after this. Jake Lyman, Corey Curtis, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you here in Nashville. Cory Curtis from News 2 is live up at the Combine in Indianapolis. Lots of storylines floating around as we gear up for free agency and draft season. Some news, Cory, we were speculating about whether David Bailey would test tomorrow when the linebackers and defensive linemen are out there on the field. Jordan Reed of ESPN says David Bailey confirmed he will participate in all testing except the short shuttle tomorrow. So we will get to see Arvell Reese and David Bailey at the very least out there on the field.
Yeah, well, and they should both do really well because they're both really impressive looking athletes. And I'm interested to see, just how different they are, if they are that much different.
Yeah, I think if I had to make a guess at the beginning of the week who we were going to see among that group on the field, Bailey and Reese, their odds are competing in these drills is only going to help their stock. Ruben Bain, who's maybe less of a traitsy guy, probably better to let his film do the talking. So I think this will be interesting tomorrow. Excited to watch those guys out there. A couple other things that I'm keeping an eye on the rest of the week, Cory. The wide receivers at the end of the week, I think, are going to be a huge talking point because it is supposed to be a deep class. Haven't heard what Carnell Tate is going to do. Jordan Tyson apparently is still injured, not going to be competing. But Mekhi Lemon says he will do all of the testing. So if the Titans were to go away from pass rush and look at a wide receiver, Lemon and possibly Tate being out there could be important for the two-tone blue as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think 4 is really high for Lemon. There's always the trade down possibility there. Right. But I think Tate and the guy from Arizona State are possibilities up there if they were to elect to go in that position. I would be surprised, but you never say never. As Robert Saleh said, the whole board is open to them.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think 4 is too high to go wide receiver in this draft. There is no Jeremiah Smith. And I know Marvin Harrison Jr. hasn't turned out to be a superstar, but that's the type of prospect that you take at number 4. These guys, they're good. They're probably top 12 to 15 prospects, but they're not top 5 guys. So maybe if the Titans could find a trade down partner, they could be in play. The quarterbacks are also interesting this week, Cory, because, and not for the Titans, of course, but just in general, Fernando Mendoza, of course, is not going to be throwing. There's no reason for him to. He is the number 1 pick. Only bad things can come when you're the number 1 pick. You cannot go any higher. So Mendoza just going through the interview process, but there is a void behind him of, who's going to be the next quarterback off the board? Do any other quarterbacks go in the first round? How many go on day 2? Ty Simpson's going to be competing. Apparently Drew Aller is going to be out there and throwing after being injured midway through Penn State season. So I think it will be intriguing to watch those quarterbacks go out there, especially when there isn't a front runner. Ty Simpson's probably your front runner for the number 2 quarterback, but nobody really stands out. There's a chance for some of these guys to put themselves out there this week out there in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I mean, and you want those guys to perform as well as possible. And, we'll see what they can do, but they absolutely want those guys to, you want Ty Simpson to go in there and just knock everybody's socks off. Number 1, because you want him to be a pick before I think he'll get picked before you pick again in the second round. But, if you can get there to be buzz for people to want to move up, that could give you some potential.
Yeah, I don't know if Simpson has the juice to get up to the top 5, but we do see it every year of teams fall in love with quarterbacks. And I could see Simpson being one of those guys that teams fall in love with. He does have good film from this past year at Alabama. There was talk that he could be the number 1 overall pick about midway through the year. He's a coach's son. He comes, he was recruited by Nick Saban. I do think that if you're looking for someone who could get the buzz to get up there, it's him. I just don't know if he ends up being somebody the Jets or the Cardinals feel comfortable taking 2nd or 3rd. I think he's probably your Jackson Dart of this year's draft, where somebody trades up late in the first round and ends up taking him.
Yeah, I mean, I think look, there's enough need in the league where somebody is going to take him for sure. You know, the question is, you know, is there anybody that is going to go in the second round? You know, does anybody else create that kind of buzz? But you know, like you said, we've seen it, and it's J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, all of these guys got drafted higher than we thought they were going to because teams need quarterbacks in this league. I mean, it's just the the desperation is real. I mean, we're talking about who Mac Jones getting a chance to play somewhere else. We're talking about Kyler Murray getting a chance to play somewhere else. We're talking about these guys all getting an opportunity because the need is there. Will the Rams be the type of team that trades for Will Levis to groom him for a year? Because teams need that position, and it inflates the value. I mean, there's quarterback value, and then there's the rest of the draft value.
Right. It's two different drafts. And it does make me think back to the 2019 draft where here in Nashville, I remember watching, and all the talk was Daniel Jones is going to be a giant, but everyone thought it was going to be with their second first-round pick. And they kind of shocked everybody, taking him sixth. I'm not saying Simpson ends up going as high as this, but if a team like the Jets really likes Simpson and they're on the clock at 2 and they say, we have 2 first-round picks, do we risk losing him if he doesn't get to us at, I forget where they're picking with the Colts pick. It's mid-teens, I want to say. So I do wonder if maybe there's a thought of that, of like, if you think you have your franchise quarterback, you don't pass on him at all. Right. So there's a chance, but Simpson obviously is going to have to impress some people this week at the combine with what he says and what he does out there on the field.
Well, look, I mean, there's a real case to be made for it. Floyd Reese used to always tell me, if you see a franchise quarterback on the board, when you pick, it doesn't matter who you have, you take them.
Yep.
Because the commodity is worth it. And you don't gamble with that. It's like when the Titans traded up in the second round to get Will Levis. They obviously liked Will Levis, but not enough to gamble the first round pick.
Yep.
And so, if you're the Jets and you think Ty Simpson is the stuff, well, the Arizona Cardinals are picking third.
Yep.
And they're going to have a new quarterback. The question is it going to be Kyler? Is it going to be Mac Jones? Is it going to be a rookie? Is it going to be, Kirk Cousins? Is it going to be somebody else? And then, the Browns are picking 6th. Who else is in the
Dolphins are 11.
The Dolphins are at 11.
Rams are 13.
So you're risking Ty Simpson going to all of those teams. You're picking at 16, and you're risking all of those teams taking him before you. If you want him, like you really want him, you may have to take him at 2.
And that's I would say it's unlikely that he goes at 2 or 3 at this point, but that would help the Titans a lot. You'd give yourself a guaranteed other option at number 4. And the Cardinals being there does put the pressure on the Jets because, like you said, if they really like him, odds are he's not going to get to you at 16. We'll have to see how this week goes with Simpson. But I keep going back to, he said, and his father said when they decided to leave Alabama, that all of the GMs they talked to and all the executives said that he had a first-round grade.
Yeah.
Typically, first-round quarterbacks end up going earlier than you expect them to. So
yes,
that is something to keep an eye on for the Titans, because having more non-quarterbacks available to you at 4 is always going to be good. So the more quarterbacks that can go off 1 through 3, the better. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. Cory, appreciate you making time for us up there in Indy. I know that you've got a busy schedule up there this week, but thanks for coming on, and excited to have you back here in Nashville next week.
All right, we'll see you next week, Jake.
Cory Curtis from News 2, his 2 stints with us up from Indy today, and appreciate him working us into the schedule here on this Wednesday. We can react to what Cory had to say. We'll wrap up the show coming up next. Also, the Predators are back in action tomorrow. We'll have a little conversation about the Preds with just over a week to go until the trade deadline. 737-1025. Wrapping up the show after this. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, wrapping up the show on this Wednesday morning. Chase and Big Joe are coming up at the top of the hour. Big thanks to Kevin Ingram for joining us early on in the program, and Cory Curtis for his 245-minute stints with us. It's been fun to have him live from Indy. The plan tomorrow is to have Teron Davenport live from Indy. We don't know when, we don't know how long yet. We're working through that with his schedule, but we will have TD at some point during the show tomorrow. So excited for that. Speaking of TD, he has been tweeting. It looks like Mike Borgonzi is doing the same thing that Robert Saleh did yesterday. Of before his official podium appearance, he's doing a little smaller scrum with local media. Couple of highlights from what Mike Borgonzi has said so far. Commented on Ruben Bain, Arvell Reese, David Bailey, says they're all good players, but different players, Bain is a power guy. Reese is versatile and explosive. Bailey has length and speed coming off the edge. So kind of what me and Cory were talking about throughout the morning. TD also says Ruben Bain officially not doing any of the testing tomorrow. So we will see David Bailey, Arvell Reese out there. Ruben Bain, as I think is smart for him, just letting his tape do all the talking. So excited to see Reese and Bailey out there. I'm not too worried about Ruben Bain not doing the combine testing. Couple more things from TD. Mike Borgonzi was asked about arm length because, again, that is the main topic this week, at least here in Nashville, and I'm sure among other cities who are thinking about drafting Ruben Bain, is, are the arms long enough? Is it going to matter for him at the NFL level? TD says, or tweeted out, that Mike Borgonzi says, some guys have long arms and don't know how to use them. Others have short arms and do know how to use them. Borgonzi said the short arms aren't an issue when he sees Ruben Bain play. So I think it shows you from Saleh.
He's been listening to the show.
Saleh and Borgonzi both have basically said that when you watch on tape and you see what Ruben Bain does as a football player, that the short arms, even if they are something that a lot of experts and analysts look at and say it could be a problem, they don't seem to be worried about it, which makes you think Bain truly could be in play at number 4 for the Titans.
Absolutely. And this just seems to be a thing with all these guys, coming out. Oh, the arms are too short. I'm pretty sure that someone said that about the Utah tackles as well coming out. Oh, no, it was the size. For Spencer Fano, he's too small, 302 pounds. That is guard or center weight in the NFL. So there are all these things that you're going to nitpick, but it ultimately boils down to, and what Cory said, it should all start and end with the tape. If Ruben Bain can play, he can play. It does not matter the arm length.
Yep. And it's funny, Ruben Bain saying in his press conference day, and Cory told us this, that Ruben Bain said that he hadn't even heard anybody say anything about his arms until halfway through the season. And I remember exactly when that happened. I forget which analyst it was. It might have been Dane Brugler. One of these draft analysts tweeted out midway through the season, like, some scouts and executives have a day 2 grade on Ruben Bain because of his short arms. And that was the first time I had heard of it. I just watched Ruben Bain play and said, this is a really good football player. So I think you can look past it, but headlines are going to be made when those official measurements come out and we find out how long Ruben Bain's arms truly are. Final nugget here from Mike Borgonzi speaking with the local media before his official podium press conference at the Combine. Mike Borgonzi said he talked to L'Jarius Sneed yesterday. Sneed is still going through the rehab process and working hard to get back. Like all players, Borgonzi said the Titans are in the process of evaluating him. So I'm going to guess he's gone, especially, again, reading the tea leaves. Mike Borgonzi says he talked to L'Jarius Sneed yesterday. I don't know if you saw this, Parker, but L'Jarius Sneed put out a cryptic tweet about, things aren't going well or something like that. I wonder if they told him yesterday they intend to release it.
I didn't see that, the tweet.
I can try and find. I don't think it's safe for radio, but I can try and piece it together a little bit here. Maybe not. He might have deleted his account unless I'm typing it in wrong. Anyway, so just reading tea leaves there. Again, no inside information, but just hearing what Mike Borgonzi has to say. And, not that anyone expected L'Jarius Sneed to be around anyway. So a couple of news and notes there out of the NFL Combine. Mike Borgonzi going to officially step to the podium here shortly within the next 10, 15 minutes. And he's already speaking with a small group of local media. Here's some news out of the Combine. The Bears have given permission to Tremaine Edmonds to seek a trade. Linebacker, Virginia Tech Hokie. I don't think the Titans should be all that involved there, but maybe. I don't know. But that's something to keep an eye on as well as we talk about possible trade targets. Trying to scroll through and see if I can find more updates here. Here's one. Jim Wyatt tweeted this out. Mike Borgonzi said the team's goal is to get something done contract-wise with Peter Skoronski. Said the team has had ongoing conversations with a number of players heading into free agency. So we'll wrap up with that one. That it's good to see that they are trying to keep Peter Skoronski around, see if they can extend him. Our simulation we did a couple of weeks ago would only let us give him $1.5 million. I would guess he's going to get a heck of a lot more than that. So Skoronski getting an extension. And also in that quote, Borgonzi saying that they've talked to many free agents who could be coming up here. Maybe that includes Chigakonkwo. Maybe it includes Kevin Zeitler. I think those are the two names that I look at on this Titans impending free agent list and say they could be back. So maybe there's some news coming before free agency officially opens in a couple of weeks. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. A couple more minutes left in the show. And I do want to mention hockey is back tomorrow as the Preds return to Bridgestone Arena taking on the Blackhawks. We'll have a deeper conversation about the Preds tomorrow as we lead into that game. But I think that's going to be this is going to be a big week for the Predators. The trade deadline is coming up in 9 days. Barry Trotz has said that these games aren't going to sway too much one way or the other, which way that they go. But I do think that they have an impact on how big of a seller you become. I think there are going to be deals like Eric Haula, for instance. I think he has raised his stock, not just with what he's done with the Predators, but he played well out there in Milan in the Olympics. Like that's on an international stage. All of the GMs, I'm sure, are watching that. Eric Haula has elevated to the second line center for the Predators. I would guess that his price has gone up a little bit. I would guess he gets moved. But there's a lot of names out there for the Predators. Ryan O'Reilly's the big one. I would still say probably unlikely that he gets moved, but Michael Bunting, some of the guys further down in the lineup, Michael McCarron, like you could see the Preds making some moves. You've got 5 games in 7 days leading up to the NHL trade deadline. To say that how you play in those isn't going to affect your decisions, I think is, I just don't know if I believe it. This team's 4 points out of a playoff spot, and there's a difference between being in the playoffs and being a threat in the playoffs, but I think this team can prove themselves and show that they've earned the right to get their best shot down the stretch to go and try and get into the playoff race.
This is completely off topic, but
Go
I
ahead.
think this is something that you'd want to know. On the Pat McAfee show, they just showed the logos of all 32 NFL teams, and they showed the Titans' new logo that was on the plush football.
Oh, no. Wow. Yeah, the Pat McAfee show right now, they've got Jim Harbaugh and Mike McDaniel on there. How does that get leaked? Like, does ESPN have that before
I don't know.
anybody
it was
else?
Just on. I was laughing back here. I'm
I did
that's
see
probably the new logo.
the all of the draft caps have been released, and except for one, the Titans. The Titans official NFL draft hat has not been released. So the new logo is coming again. March 12th is the date that is plastered all over the billboards around town and was put on social media. So very interesting
Set Twitter
stuff.
ablaze.
I am sure that's going to find its way to social media that Pat McAfee just leaked the Titans logo.
Yeah, because they were showing the cap space of all 32 teams, and the Titans have number one.
I
new
see
logo.
it. Yep. I see it behind him. Like that is the Oilers blue and the red. Wow. So there you go. Pat McAfee just leaked the Titans' new logo. That is hilarious. That does it for us today. Again, big thanks, Cory Curtis joining us live from the Combine. Kevin Ingram joining us ahead of Vanderbilt men's basketball playing Georgia tonight. 5:30 pregame. Tomorrow, TD is on with us. Don't know how long yet, but he'll join us live from Indy. Chase and Big Joe coming up next here on 102.5 The Game.